You are listening to A Path to a New You, a podcast about mental health as well as veterans issues. Today's topic is a very important topic. And the reason why I say it's important is about teen and adolescents, and their mental health. One of the reasons why I chose this topic at this time is due to the fact that school is starting. So, in today's episode, I'm going to discuss some facts. I'm going to talk about some benefits as well as some not so benefits from social media. There are some benefits of social media, and there's some not so benefits, and there's some not so benefits for social media. I'm going to talk a little bit about social media as well as some mental health and what you can do to help your teen, adolescent, or teen in certain situations. I also posted on my Facebook page asking people for questions that they have that I would try to answer. I really don't get any responses. I thought I'd get more. I got a couple questions. So, yeah, I think people are seeing it, liking it, loving it for some reason, but no one's actually asking questions. So, um, the questions that were asked, I'm going to try to answer them. Some of it, one of the questions is about social media, like Facebook, Instagram, and all that stuff. So, I'll talk about that. Globally, 1 in 7 10 to 19-year-olds experience a mental disorder, accounting for 13% of the global burden of disease in this age group. Depression, anxiety, and behavioral disorders are among the leading causes of illness and disability among adolescents. Suicide is the fourth leading cause of death among 15 to 29-year-olds. The consequences of failing to address adolescent mental health conditions extend to adulthood, impairing both physical and mental health and limiting opportunities to lead fulfilling lives as adults. So that's saying if you don't really catch it in your adolescent years, it could get worse, and all that stuff can go through and could extend adulthood. So, I guess, um, what's that trying to say? That's trying to say what's getting treatment or anything like that during your adolescent years definitely is a benefit. Adolescents with mental health conditions are particularly vulnerable to social exclusion, discrimination, stigma, educational difficulties, risk taking behaviors, and physical ill health and human right violations. Multiple factors affect mental health. The more risk factors adolescents are exposed to, the greater the potential impact on their mental health. Factors that can contribute to stress during adolescence include exposure to adversity, pressure to conform with peers, and exploration of identity. Media influence and gender norms can exaggerate the disparity between an adolescent's lived reality and their perceptions or aspirations for the future. That's about social media. I'm going to talk about that later on this episode. Other important factors include the quality of their home life and relationship with peers. Violence, especially sexual violence and bullying, harsh parenting, and severe and socioeconomic problems are recognized risks to mental health. Some adolescents are at greater risk of mental health conditions due to their living condition, their stigma, discrimination, or lack of access to quality support and services. Adolescents with chronic illness, autism spectrum disorder, and a disability, any other disability or neurological condition, pregnant adolescents, adolescent parents, or those in earlier forced marriages, orphans, and adolescents from minority ethnic or sexual backgrounds or other discriminated groups. So those are the ones I just listed are greater are at a greater risk of mental health conditions due to their living. Emotional disorders are common among adolescents. Anxiety disorders, which may involve panic or excessive worry, are the most prevalent in this age group and are more common among older than among younger adolescents. It is estimated that 3.6% of 10 to 14-year-olds and about 4.6% of 15 to 19-year-olds experience an anxiety disorder. Depression is estimated to occur among 1.1% of adolescents aged 10 to 14 years and 2.8% of 15 to 19-year-olds. Depression and anxiety share some of the same symptoms, which include rapid, unexpected changes in mood. So depression and anxiety they, they're somewhat similar. They have the same symptoms. There's also differences too. I believe it was a while ago, but I did talk about those two different mental health disorders. If you go back a few months, I did explain what depression and anxiety are. So yeah, benefit of listening to my podcast is learning about different mental health disorders and treatment, all that stuff. So the more you listen to it, the more you understand what I'm talking about. Anxiety and depression disorders can profoundly affect school attendance and schoolwork. Social withdrawal can exacerbate isolation and loneliness. And of course, depression can also lead to suicide if not treated. There's also behavioral disorders. They're also common among younger adolescents and younger and older adolescents. ADHD or attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, characterized by difficulty at paying attention, excessive activity, and acting with regard to consequences, occurs among 3.1% of 10 to 14-year-olds and 2.4% of 15 to 19-year-olds. Conduct disorder, I believe I talked about that in a different episode, um, occurs among 3.6% of 10 to 14-year-olds and 2.4% of 15 and 19-year-olds. Behavioral disorders can affect adolescents' education, and conduct disorder may result in criminal behavior. Eating disorders is another one. Eating disorders such as anorexia and bulimia commonly emerge during adolescence and young adulthood. Eating disorders involve abnormal eating behavior and preoccupation with food, accompanied in most instances by concerns about body weight and shape. Anorexia can lead to premature death, often due to medical complications or suicide, and has higher mortality than any other mental disorder. So those are just some of the disorders. They're just categorized in different disorders. Those are some of the common ones among adolescents and teens. There's others that you just look up on Google or anything like that. The more you educate yourself on these different disorders, the more you can help your child or teen or adolescent. Suicide is the fourth leading cause of death in older adolescents between 15 and years. Risk factors for suicide can include harmful use of alcohol, abuse in childhood, stigma against help seeking. I did talk about stigma a few episodes ago. So again, the more you listen to my podcast, the more you kind of know what I'm talking about. barriers to access to care and access to means of suicide. Digital media, which I'm going to talk about here in a few minutes, like any other media, can play a significant role in either enhancing or weakening suicide prevention efforts. So I hope you learn a little something there. If you have any questions, you can always reach out. I'll discuss that here after I talk about social media. So one of the questions there's only two questions that that were asked on my post for me to answer. I got one of them. One of them was hormones. About hormones, I believe that could be a factor. With children growing up, hormones do probably have a factor with the mental health and behaviors and all that. And so, I don't know much about that, but I'm sure if you ask a therapist or someone like that, or you can look it up online too. Ask your primary care doctor, ask anybody like that. But I do believe hormones may play a factor. Social media definitely plays a factor. Um, I think people remember in spring of 2023, the United States Surgeon General released an advisory calling for social media and youth mental health, in which he says there is a growing evidence that social media is causing harm to young people's mental health. And soon after that, the American Psychological Association, or APA, issued its own health advisory. This issue can be kind of complicated. However, while there are indicators that it can be a profound risk of harm to teens, social media used aimed at making mental health connections with others may actually be beneficial to some people. So again, there's some harm and there's some benefits. Some benefits could be, your child may connect with their friends via Facebook, Instagram, and that's how they communicate when they're not with each other, like at school or anything, or during the summer. So there's some benefits. There's also some risk factors. So yeah, you just got to be careful. What are some potential benefits of social media used by teens? Some teenagers experience a benefit when they use social media to foster positive connections with others. I just mentioned that, who share common interests or identities. I just mentioned that. Creating a space for self expression, relationships formed in communities. Like these can create opportunities for positive interactions with more diverse peer groups than are available to them offline, if that makes any sense. So creating a space for self-expression. So social media is used, for self-expression, relationships formed in communities. Um, the your teen, your child can find other people their age, and they can connect, and they have the same likes and stuff. So they create a more relationship. They form communities and relationships. If that makes sense. What are some potential harms? According to a research study of American teens between the ages of 12 and 15, those who use social media over 3 hours each day face twice the risk of having negative mental health outcomes, including depression and anxiety symptoms. So, the more they use social media, the greater the risk of mental health, if that makes sense. So, when does the kind of content teens see become an issue? That's a good question. Teens can easily access extreme, inappropriate, and harmful content. In certain cases, deaths have been linked to suicide, and self harm related content, such as cutting and risk taking challenges on social media platforms. Now, lately, TikTok has been a contributor to those risk taking challenges. There was those, um, was it a year or two ago with the pod eating challenge? There's been other challenges too that have been extremely harmful and could become deadly. So that's definitely an issue. In addition, there are people who target adolescents, adults, with seeking teens for sexual exploit or financially extort them through the threat or actual distribution of intimate images. They could use social media platforms for these type of predatory behaviors, according to the Surgeon General's advisor. So again, just be careful. Just watch what your child or adolescent's doing. There's there's harmful people out there. There's people trying to bring in their teens, your child or whatever. Just be careful. The excessive use of social media can harm teens by disrupting important healthy behaviors. Some researchers think that exposure to social media can overstimulate the brain's reward center, and when the stimulation becomes excessive, can trigger pathways comparable to addiction. So again, the more they do it, the longer they do it, the more addicted they become. Addiction is a topic I did talk about earlier in a different episode. Excessive use has also been linked to sleep problems, attention problems, and the feelings of exclusion in adolescence. And sleep is essential to the healthy development of teens. So yeah, the more they use social media, the more problems there can be. Um, so what can you do to help prevent these problems? That's a good question. So one of the things I think, and I've looked up and I believe is something you could do to help is determine the age your child will have access to social media. What's a good age for them to have like a Facebook or have a phone or anything like that? That's up to you to decide. Um, but I've been out in the community and I've seen 7, 8, 9 year olds with phones. To me, that is too young of an age. To me, maybe once you hit 13 or 14, you can get a phone and then they can um that's my age, I think 13 to 14. Some people may believe that's too young. It's up to you, up to the parent. So yeah, just make sure, just determine what the age of your child to have access to social media and a phone. Um, so let's see here. The minimum age mostly commonly required to social media platforms in the U.S. is 13. Nearly 40% of children ages 8 to 12 use social media. So again, like you have to be 13 to use, like I believe some social platforms. But nearly, they said 40% of children ages 8 to 12 use social media. Um, Keep devices out of the bedroom. What does that mean? Well, if you keep the devices like the phones and stuff out of the bedroom, the more you can actually benefit from you, the parent, knowing what's going on with your child. Whereas if you keep it in the bedroom, they can close the door and they can do, they can look up things and yeah. So keeping devices out of the bedroom. Research shows a relationship between social media use and poor sleep quality, reduced sleep duration, and sleep difficulties in young people. For teens, poor sleep is linked to emotional health issues and a higher risk for suicide. So that's one of the reasons why to keep the devices out of the bedroom. They get to sleep, especially at night. If they have social media, if they have like their phone in their bedrooms, they will probably be using it throughout the night. Therefore, there's actually a study out there too with the light, the phone. That's something to do with sleep too. Um, According to a doctor who did a study on a typical weekday, nearly one third of adolescents report using screen media until midnight or later. So again, that's kind of late, especially for a child who, let's say during the school year, needs their sleep and they got to get up early and they'll go to school. So if they use their phone until midnight or later, they're not going to get enough sleep. Because, however, once you put the phone down, it still may take, an hour, 30 minutes to an hour for that person to fall asleep. So again, you're looking at them really not passing out or sleeping until, if they're using till midnight, it's not till like 1 a.m. And then again, they got to get up early for school. Most schools start probably about 8:30 these days. So, gotta get up, you gotta have your breakfast or anything like that. So yeah, I mean, it looks like they're getting up probably about 6 a.m. or maybe 7 a.m. at the latest. So that's only what, 5.5 hours of sleep, and they're saying 8 hours is what's needed, 8 hours or more. And keep the lines of communication open and let your teens make mistakes. It will be easier to talk to your teen about social media if you have comfortable conversations with them about other issues. So, again, keep your lines of communication open. Talk to them. Say, hey, got a question? Got anything? Talk to me. And let your team make mistakes. Be mindful of your approach when talking to your teen. Although keeping the line of communication open matters, how you have those conversations is equally important. If you are concerned about your teen's social media use and feel the need to intervene, you might say something like, "It seems like you're on the phone so much, and that I don't see you doing homework." That's an example. Say, "Hey, you know what? Looks like you're using the phone a lot. You got homework to do. Might want to start doing your homework." So yeah, so that's being mindful of your how you talk to your teen or adolescent or teen. Also, a very important one. Well, you know what? If you got these rules for your kids, follow those rules yourself. You know, follow your rules yourself. Because if your child sees that you're following the rules that you're giving them, the more they're gonna follow the rules. If that makes any sense. So follow the rules yourself. So say, hey, you know what? I'm not gonna be on my phone after 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock. So your your child too. You're like you tell your child he or she cannot have their phone with past like 8 or 9 o'clock. I'm just putting a time out there. That means if you follow your own rules, say, you know what, I'm not going to use social media or anything like that after 9 o'clock as well. Your child sees that, and your child will agree, and there won't be any complications. Now, if you tell your child, hey, you can't use social media past 9 o'clock, but they see that, hey, you're on social media after 9 o'clock, child's like, why are you doing that? Why? How come you get to? And like, you understand, hey, I'm an adult, whatever, but if you follow the rules yourself, there will not be any questions like that asked. I'm just putting it out there. Now, there's different types of treatment for this kind of stuff. If your child's struggling or anything like that, there's treatment options out there. So the sooner you help your teen out with these mental health issues, the better off they are. Like I mentioned earlier, if it keeps if you don't get treated soon enough, this can all long this can all go into their adulthood. So the sooner the better. Just like any other mental illness or just addiction, even addiction, the sooner you get your treatment for addiction, the better off you are. Because the longer you hold off on it, the more severe it can get. And we don't want that. So there's other treatment options. There's one-on-one counseling, with a therapist. That's when your child sits in, your child and a therapist sit in a room and discuss things or whatever. There's also group therapy. I know here in Madison, Um, there's a few. There's a few out there. One of them is North Star Day Treatment. I know I have a good mentor who I've talked to who have been. He's been a mentor for me. His name is Dr. Steve Stein. He is one of the founders of that treatment center. He's a great guy. He knows what he's doing. Another one where I worked at for almost 2 years, 2.5 years. Rogers Behavioral Health. That's another treatment option that's here in Madison. Rogers is actually they have locations throughout the country now, like Philadelphia, Miami, Tampa, San Diego, San Francisco. They're all over the place in Seattle. There might be if you're listening anywhere in this country, they might have a facility near you. Or you can always Google. You can Google options too. Psychologytoday.com is a great place to start looking if you think your child needs some treatment. Psychology Today. What you do is go in, um, and you can find a therapist or a counseling center near you by typing in, say, depression, and yeah, it'll come up. So there's ways to get treatment. And I just mentioned a couple from Madison, North Star again, Day Treatment Center. They've been around for, I don't know how long, probably about 20, 30 years, maybe more. But they've been around for a while in Madison. And then again, Rogers Behavioral Health is another one that's located in Madison. And they're also located throughout the country and areas throughout the country too. Anyway, I hope you learned something today. I know I kept rambling. I'm just trying to get someone who specializes in this area on my podcast, but no one responded. I try to get more questions from people, and I got like two questions. So I don't know. People are liking it, loving my posts or whatever. I'm trying to get more people involved. That way, it's just not me talking all the time because I know that can get boring after a bit. I like more guests on my podcast as well. I do have a Facebook page for this podcast, Path to New You Facebook page. Please like and follow. You can also contact me through there if you have questions or anything. Um, his podcast is available in most streaming platforms like Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, Audible, Amazon Music, and I think there's a couple other ones. Pretty much any major streaming platform, you'll be able to find me. Again, you're listening to A Path to New You. And until next time, enjoy your day and be safe and be well.